Shut up and sit down.
Oh, hello and welcome to a North Wales side-by-side video. My mate gave me this wheel the other week and he says I've snapped a spoke, and it's off the back of his Beta 300RR enduro bike. So I said to him, get some spokes, get some new nipples. Here we have a couple of new spokes, a few new nipples, and I'm going through the wheel. I've changed the broken spoke, and whilst I'm going through the wheel, I'll notice there's quite a few more damaged spokes than we thought. I've taken so far 5 spokes out the wheel other than the one that was broken. That's a new spoke. That's what it should look like, straight. These aren't. These are all bent. That one's not as bent as some of them, but it's bent. So I'm just going to go through the rest of the wheel now. I've changed that one, that one, that one, that one. And there's another one in there somewhere that I've changed. And that's just on the sprocket side of the wheel. Yeah, I found all the bent and the broken spokes on the sprocket side. So now I'm going to have to check the disc side of the wheel. There's not normally as much damage on this side of the rim because there's not as much load on it. All the load's on the sprocket. What I'm looking for is bent spokes. That side of the wheel's fine. Right, there's my starting point. That's my starting point. Let's see if there's any more bent spokes on the sprocket side. I'm going to have to go through this wheel afterwards and true it up. I think I've got another bent one there. That one's tight. I'm just going to have to put the camera down a sec. There we go. When you're doing this, you've got to make a note of whether the spoke, like this one runs over the top of a spoke, that one runs under this spoke. You've got to get that right. I've just released the tension. It's come out up there so it's not seized. Let me take the nipple off. There we are. That's the nipple. And that went underneath that spoke. So you can pull that out. It's not as bent as some, but it is bent. So it's getting a new spoke. And it came out of that hole. Went under that spoke. Comes down and goes through the hole in the wheel. So now I need a new nipple. Now I'm going to have to put it down again. I'm going to line that nipple up with the end. I've got my spoke in the right orientation under there. I've got the nipple started on the thread. And these spokes do have a kick on them. So you've got to get the kick in the right place. So otherwise it won't go through the hole in the bottom. So we've got that kick right. So I can now just put some tension on the spoke and draw it down. Making sure it's seated there. All I'm going to do is just take the tension up with my hand, because I've got to come back and true the wheel up later. That's basically just changing a spoke on a motorcycle wheel. It isn't hard. You've just got to go about it step by step. And check as you're going around for any damage. So that's 6 bent spokes, 1 broken spoke, and we've got a couple of spare ones for future escapades. And these were genuine. Yeah, these are genuine Beta spokes, so he's bought these off Beta. Fair dues. So I'm going to let that wheel settle now for the rest of the afternoon. I'm going to come back to it tonight and we'll check it for true. But I'm not doing that now. I'm just going to let the wheel settle after putting some tension on the new spokes. I'll do the rest afterwards. Right, it's a couple of hours since we put the spokes in this wheel, and it's been sat on the floor with a bit of tension on all the spokes, and I've just let it settle for a couple of hours. I know this looks really, really crude. What I've got is a ratchet clamped into a vise with some wooden jaws. I've got a piece of wood zip tied to the vise, and I've got the wheel pushed up against the edge of the wooden block sitting on the ratchet handle. And I've got the edge of the wood up against the edge of the wheel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some pressure there to keep it up against the wood. And I'm going to get a starting point, which is going to be that valve there. So that's at the bottom. And I'm going to go round 1 turn. And I'm going to watch how far out that wheel is from true. So I'm putting pressure on the brake disc now, so I've got something to turn, and let's see how far out I've got this wheel just by changing the spokes I've changed and putting what I think is the right tension on it. And I've just got a little gap there. I don't know if you can see it. See if we can get a better angle. There's just a tad of a gap there. It's not a lot. It's not enough to worry about on a motocross wheel. Because once you've got the tyre on and he's got his mousse in, the tyre's going to move. So let's carry on going round. I've literally got 0.5 millimetre of run out there. How far out are we? There's my starting point. So we're nearly all the way round. What that is actually running on, what it's actually catching, it's catching this tape on the wheel. Because the tape's coming off the wheel, as you can see here. That's what it's actually catching on. The wheel is true. That's good enough. Just looking down that wheel, I think we're pretty true. I think that wheel is good enough to put back on the bike. Whilst we've got it here and it's easy to turn, let's get the starting point back at the bottom. Where was that? There it is. That's just an old valve core. Because this wheel doesn't run an inner tube. It runs something similar to this, a mousse, to stop him getting punctures. Then he puts his tyre over the mousse. So let me get the screwdriver. So I've got that at the bottom. Once I've got that at the bottom, I can start on these. And I'm just going to go round the wheel and check every single spoke for tightness and tension. That was a new one. That's just taken a tad of tension. That's another new one there. That one's okay. That one's okay. That one's okay. That one's tight. That one's tight. That one's tight. That's a new one. That one's tight. That one's tight. People think you need a lot of tension on these spokes. You don't need as much as you think. Right, I'm halfway round the wheel now, because that's my valve core that's come to the top. So when that gets to the bottom, I will have checked every single spoke for tension. Tight. 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 And I'm using the correct screwdriver for this. This is a US Pro 1616 and it's a JASO screwdriver specifically for this job. Tight. It makes the job easier. You can do your spoke tensions by using a small spanner on there, but if you've got the wheel off, the tyre off I should say, this just makes the job much easier, because it's much easier to get an idea of tension. See, that one's just taken a little bit. I'll check the wheel again for true after I've gone right round it. That wants a little bit more. I might have to go round the wheel a couple of times as I'm working my way round and putting tension if any of them need tension. Well, I've just had to change a battery in the camera. Yeah, I've come across a couple that were loose whilst I've been going round. So I'm just going to finish off going around the wheel. Where is my... I'm right at the bottom now again. I've gone round once. So there's the valve core. And these are the two we started on. That one and that one. So let's get our block of wood back in place. Push the wheel back up against there. And check our rim for true. I want to document this for my friend so he can see that this wheel has been checked and we're running true. Where's the valve core? The valve core's there. So I've got another quarter of a turn to go. There's the valve core. Yeah. I've gone past. Yeah, I've gone round one complete turn now after going through all them spokes. That wheel is as true as it can be. I can't get it. I could if I worked at it a little bit harder. There's just one little bit that's got a little bit like that in it, but it's in one very small spot like that. And I think it's a nick in the rim or it's catching the tape. But the gap's staying consistent, so I think that wheel's running as true as it's ever going to be. Considering this wheel's over 12 months old and it's had a really hard life. So that's how you lace spokes up in a motocross wheel. That's how you check them for true. Yes, very crude, but it works. You don't have to have complicated bits of kit for doing that. If that wheel was miles out, let's say we kick the wheel like that. Say the wheel had a big buckle in it, you'd see it. There you go, big buckle, then the wheel come back like that, and then went back out like that. You'd then be adjusting spokes to get it. This wheel isn't bent. That's just an example. That's what you're looking for. Big deviations in the wheel. That's within 0.5 millimetre of running true. I hope you enjoyed that little video about putting a spoke. Well, you watched me put one spoke in, but I've done multiple spokes. And then how to check your wheel for true on a really cheap way of doing it. You don't need a wheel truer or nothing. You just need some way of supporting the wheel with it running on the shaft that the spindle goes through, up against something there to keep it running true, and just slowly turn it round with something in a fixed position, so you can just keep an eye on the gap, and that's all you need to do. It's really not as complicated as people make out. You've just got to use a little bit of common sense and use the tools you've actually got available. So we've changed we've changed 6 bent spokes, 1 broken spoke, and we've got left in the bag 4 extra spokes and 4 extra nipples in case he has any more spoke problems. So that wheel's ready to go back to him. All I have to do is turn that around and tighten the nut up on there. This does nothing more than block a hole off, so the water doesn't get into the rim. It doesn't form, it doesn't do anything but that. That's it. That wheel's ready to go back to my friend. It's as good as it's going to be. Changing spokes and checking the wheel for running true. It can't be any simpler. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. And the code word in today's video, if you've got to the end, is beta. B-E-T-A. Beta. Thanks for watching. Please consider liking. Please consider subscribing.